Hey, now listen up. We interrupt you from this podcast to bring you this special message. This podcast is not for children. There's occasional use of explicit language. Viewer discretion is advised. I'm going to ask you some real simple questions, and I want some real simple answers. You understand?
You really took the car door off for this?
Now let me get this right. You kicked the squad door in at about 11:15, right?
Yeah. I kicked the door. I kicked the window at 11:15.
Why was the window out of alignment when the car reached the station?
Wow, y'all took the damn door off the car and mad at me for kicking the window?
So, you kicked this squad door in at 12:15, right?
I keep telling you I kicked the window at 12:15, not the car.
Now you see something? Now you know you done fucked up, right? You know that, right? You just said 12:15. Earlier you said 11:15. Now which one is it, huh?
You took the whole door off. Come on now.
All that finger pointing ain't gonna do nothing but sit you back in that shit. Answer the question. Did you or did you not kick the door off the car?
I don't have superpowers. I just tapped the window.
Oh, so now you saying that you just tapped the window, huh? Oh yeah, you all messed up now, huh?
If I was in Menace to Society, this is what it would have looked like when they took me to the interrogation room. It's kind of what I was imagining. Instead, let me tell you what really happened, including the things my dark passenger said.
Hello, Maf. I'm your court-appointed psychiatrist, Curtis. I'm here to get you out of here as fast as possible, because we know you really don't want to be here. Would you like to introduce yourself to my assistant and myself?
Say nothing. He's with them.
Silence as I look around the room. I think to myself, he's a skillman. For those that don't remember, Skillman is a foundation dedicated to improving the youth of Detroit. And I seem to think everyone I met these days was secretly a part of this organization, and that they had some wild agenda to manipulate my future.
Well, your mother tells me you intend on becoming a neurosurgeon. Have you ever heard of Dr. Ben Carson? He has a story very similar to yourself.
Look at him. No expressions.
I stare at him with a straight face.
Well, that's enough for now. We hope to make some progress on your behalf, so maybe you'll be more yielding later on.
This beat was made by the 21st century Schizoid man. Now, enjoy the podcast.
Welcome to the second episode of our show, 21st Century Schizoid Man. I'm your host, Maf, along with my brother, Mayo.
Yo.
This episode is a lesson meant to teach you how to beat your juvie case. Disclaimer, events experienced in this podcast may not actually result in a solved juvie case. In fact, by listening to this podcast, you might actually be more inclined to go to juvie. Just kidding. This podcast is really meant to expose some of the darker legal situations that can potentially arise when dealing with mental health issues.
Getting sent to correctional facilities as a minor is probably not the most common problem, so for the millions in the audience, shout out to the 2 or 3 people that can actually relate.
As if those 2 are not the only ones listening. But regardless, as always, real shit for the real ones out there. One piece of advice: don't get arrested, especially if you're over 18. Now, for most of those suffering, this may not be as easy as it sounds. Trust me, I know, but interactions with police can be a little less complicated if you follow a couple guidelines. Number 1, are the cops on their way? If no, get away from the situation as soon and as legally as possible. If yes, how deep of shit are you in? Them legs may be fast, but if you swimming in trouble, you must definitely want to think before you sink. I try to reason with my voices. You're probably thinking that sounds crazy. And my response is, yes, that's exactly what we're dealing with. Crazy.
Surprise!
Next, number 2. When reasoning fails, and it most likely will, try to reason with the other parties involved. Make sure to let them know that you have mental health issues. If you're anything like me, the voices will not allow you to do anything that adds up to the slightest of sense.
This step is actually really important. You have to let the authorities know that the person that they're dealing with has a mental health issue. I think maybe back around 2016, we had this story where, long story short, the cops were called. We were at an airport, and it was like, what was it, like 20 cops there? Or what was it, like 5-10 cops or something like that?
I don't recall.
Of course you don't remember. So everything ended up going pretty smoothly after we told the officers that the person they were called to deal with was going through mental health issues, aka you.
Number 3. When the cops arrive, no matter what you do not resist and do cooperate. However, in the event that you do get arrested and taken to juvie, once again assuming you're under 18, here are some tips on behavior. When I got to the quote-unquote juvie living room, I was still struggling and made the simple mistake of thinking that the whole experience was fake. Next thing I know, they body slammed me into my room, 4 concrete walls, and a cot for sleeping. First quote for me was, "How can you lock these kids up like this?" I was thinking that the Skillman Foundation was challenging me to speak up against the incarceration of minors. Basically, I thought I was a Meek Mill fighting for prison reform, junior criminal turned prison advocate. I didn't stop there.
All right, this is completely new to me. What you end up doing?
They didn't like my yelling, so I turned it up a notch. As soon as they locked my room, I started banging against the door, asking, "Where are they?" By they, I meant the Skillmans.
Bro, you really think you Kanye, huh?
God level. I guess you could say I was the Louis Vuitton pawn.
But oh boy. Yo, we got to do the next episode on how absurd your love for Kanye is. Like, low key, his life is kind of paralleled yours the last few years.
Most deaf. So back to my story. Eventually, I got tired of yelling and went to sleep. But by then, all the other inmates thought I was crazy. So it was no surprise what happened the next day.
Oh, your little juvie friends didn't want to talk to you? Imagine a kid that's never been in any real trouble turned into the worst inmate in juvie, yo.
And so the Hunger Games begin.
It's time. Don't get up. Make them come get you. And don't talk either. I hate your stupid voice.
Time for breakfast.
I try to get up, but my body won't move.
What did I tell you? No breakfast.
I went back to sleep hungry, of course.
Social time. Get up.
I get up and go to the social area. I see a TV hanging from the ceiling in the corner, a room labeled radio room, 2 tables, and some chairs. The first thing I notice.
10-4.
My head jerks like a dog after a squirrel, looking for where the sound came from. I try to ask what it is.
Shut up.
Hey, new guy. This is Jeremiah. He's another inmate. He's more familiar with the Juve.
Yes, he called it the Juve.
So you can follow him around for a while. Hey.
Say hi.
I sit at the table with the other inmates, and I stumble into the conversation.
So what are you in here for?
I kick the cop car window. You guys?
Drugs? Assault? I stole a car. Hey. Y'all aren't allowed to talk about your charges, gentlemen.
We all go mute.
10-4.
There it goes again. My mind somehow arrives at the conclusion that it's talking to me. So I listen closely to whatever is going on in the room whenever the talkie talks. At this moment, I somehow piece together that there were things on TV I should watch and others which I shouldn't.
Don't pay attention to the video games. Only the movies.
Yo, what's the story behind this walkie-talkie and the TV? Like, are you Jim Carrey in The Truman Show or something?
Nah, I'm more like the kid from Kubrick's The Shining, except instead of a finger telling me what to do, it's the TV, or really any kind of media. But like I mentioned in the last episode, the media talking to me was one of my more severe symptoms. So if it made any sound and I could piece together any semblance of sense, I was sold on it, hook, line, and sinker. Now, I thought that the Skillmans had organized this whole scenario. The building, the food, the kids, the media, everything.
Recess, kids.
I'm wondering what he means recess. We get recess in juvie? It has the Skillman's name written all over it. I follow Jeremiah. You go down a flight of stairs, straight to an outdoor basketball court. I'm still thinking this is special treatment, even though in every major movie about prison, they're lifting weights, shooting hoops, and throwing footballs during their outdoor time. Oh, now they want me to show how athletic I am. I promise you folks, I'm not really this vain, at least anymore. Of course, any company is worried about the CEO's health, but at this age, 16, I'm not too sure. Remember in the last episode how I talked about how I thought they wanted me to be the CEO of the foundation? I mean, back then it made sense, of course. But now, hindsight would be 20/20, except I'm still schizophrenic. 30 minutes pass, and it's time for lunch.
No food, no talking.
This was the start of a new trend in my illness called the Hunger Games. No talking and long periods without food, with small rewards.
Bro, this no talking thing was the worst. For real.
It's true. Rewards would come when I completed a quote-unquote challenge. Of course, this wasn't ideal for a junior convict. Currently, my challenge was to guess the food we were going to eat. Of course, they mentioned it earlier in the day, but I wasn't paying any attention because I had no idea this challenge was happening. I guessed something like turkey and potatoes, but I was wrong. It was almost Thanksgiving. A stable diet was one of the requirements of getting out, and obviously I was right on target. Psych! I'm going to let my brother explain a little bit of the legal process going on behind the scenes.
So yeah, back then my mom contacted his school and she told him that he must see the judge before he could return. At this point, the school said they would intervene because he was a good student. So then the school hired a lawyer and said that they would handle the legal fees, which was actually pretty dope. Like, the lawyer, at this point, the lawyer stepped into the issue, and like that, with the wave of a hand, he was released. I mean, it was basically like, free my man Schizoid. The release was contingent on the premise of his following up with psychological consult. The school even paid for the legal consultation. The benefactor of the legal help was never relayed to us, but the school said they wanted to be kept anonymous. My mother at the time was hurt, and she would think about it constantly. She questioned the fairness of the socioeconomic system that caused such heartache. And by heartache, I'm pretty sure she was referring to how the cops ended up escalating the situation, even though we called them to calm the situation down, and the fact that he was in juvie for, how long was that?
About 3 or 4 weeks.
Side note, just a quick tidbit for you guys. It's really frightening when you or a family member is experiencing a mental health crisis. You may or may not know what to do. We definitely didn't know what to do in our first, this was basically his first major episode. And most mental health crisis situations can be resolved without law enforcement. And there's strategies and suggestions for navigating mental health crises. A lot of these you can find on NAMI.org, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. If you feel like you need urgent help for a mental health crisis, but there is no immediate danger, consider contacting your local emergency services program, or ESP. ESPs are typically teams of trained mental health clinicians that can evaluate someone who is experiencing a mental health crisis, and they try to help find the support you need to manage these crises. They're usually available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round. Now, if there's something where there's an immediate danger, or if it looks like somebody's going to become physically violent, I would dial 911 in that case. And just like I said earlier, it's important to make sure that you tell them that the person you're dealing with is experiencing a mental health crisis. Usually it helps to be brief and extremely specific about what's happening in that scenario, which we did, so it doesn't always work. Considering all those things, it's more likely that the police are going to come with emergency medical services. When this happens, your loved one is typically not going to get taken away in a squad car. But yeah, I'm going to toss it back to you so you can keep telling that juvie story. Hello, Maf. I see you're having some problems expressing yourself. You may have what we call schizoaffective disorder. We believe it may be in your best interest to start you out on a regimen of medicine and psychological consult. Also, today will begin your legal proceedings.
No talking for now. We will decide later if you can speak during your trial.
So this begins the first day of the rest of my life. Pills, doctor's visits, and police cars. A few hours pass and an attendant comes to get me for court. They cuff my legs and hands. They take me outside and cuff me into the transport van. Nothing special, just a white van with barred windows. Inside were other inmates with other different colored jumpsuits, meaning more severe charges. We get to the Oakland County Circuit Court building and they take us to our holding cells. I'm not sure I mentioned this yet, but I was convinced that the Skillman Foundation was somehow connected to the Dark Passenger.
Look at the wall scribblings and find the names of former presidents involved in your case.
I wasn't crazy enough to believe that dead presidents were representing me. Word to Nas. So I ignored the voice.
So corny. He's so corny.
The Skillmans were not playing fair in my head, literally.
If you're not gonna work, you can't talk during your hearing.
At this point, the voice had asked me to do many things without any reciprocity, and now I was fed up.
Since you won't listen, time for some trouble.
My hands begin to move as the passenger makes me bang my arms and cuffs against the door.
Hey, quiet down in there.
We get to the hearing and they ask me a few questions, but I'm not allowed to answer by the Dark Passenger. I leave the courtroom with the guards not knowing what was going to happen in the future. We return to the Juve. Mind you, I'm only calling it this because I thought that the guard and / attendant that looked like Santa Claus was Alfred from Batman, and he did this because it was a joke. We'll go further into this Batman connection in later episodes.
Oh, you got mad connections.
Trust me, you will not want to miss this. The last noteworthy parts of Juvie were me reading Space Odyssey 2001. I was a big Kubrick fan. Juvie School and Visitation.
Why was that book important?
I just wanted to say I actually accomplished something positive in the Juve.
Stop calling it the Juve. All right, so what about school? So wait, they had school in there?
Yeah. I finished all those pointless assignments and got the privilege of doing word searches and crosswords. The Juve honor roll.
Wait, they had you doing word searches and crosswords? That was school?
It was around holiday time, you know. They got to mix it up a little bit.
Whatever. I guess what was so special about the visitation?
I was surprised my mother came to visit me, even though I shouldn't have been. My mother is such a loving soul and always comes through for me. She told me not to worry about my scholarship because the school was ready to accept me with open arms. They even contended that I should seek out legal counsel against the police.
By the way, this scholarship was, he had a scholarship to attend UAD, the private school he was going to. By the way, one of the craziest sights I've ever seen was my little brother, a private school kid on scholarship, walking into the courtroom with an orange jumpsuit, his legs handcuffed, and his hands handcuffed, with a big-ass police officer walking him, guiding him in the courtroom. Shit was crazy, bro. So I guess you got anything else?
Well, I got to be Captain Underpants. This meant I was in charge of folding and distributing underwear from my floor in the Juve. Another crazy milestone. After a couple more weeks in hearings, I received the surprise news that I would be leaving on that exact day. The Skillmans weren't finished. Just like that, ladies and gentlemen, I was in the radio room when I heard, "You can't hurry, love. No, you just have to wait." Came on, and I knew, but it had to be them. A sign that they were still interested.
You can't hurry, love. Oh, you just have to wait. Oh, love don't come easy. 'Cause it's a game of give and take.
millennial.